Okay, we are live. Hello. Um, Thank you to anyone that is joining me. Tonight we're going to finish up the Skeletor drawing, or sorry, the Skeletor painting. I'm going to start with doing some colored pencils, and then we'll kind of go a little bit on top of it with acrylic to just kind of beef up some things here and there. So I'm just kind of getting some general ones that I think can work for this color scheme. We'll kind of like try them out and see. Yeah, that'll be a good one. Apologies for the pencil sharpener noise. Probably going to hear that a little bit tonight as we go through this. Oh god, that one. I don't know if you can see that, but it actually, I don't know if you can see that, but the tip kind of shattered in there, it seems. There we go. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of go through and add a little bit of refinement here and there as I need to. Softening some edges. Let's see, we need a good, brilliant blue. Might also introduce this. Yeah. Introduce this red. So the gouache over the acrylic, I've not done that before. I have done a similar technique with oils, but I wanted to test this out and kind of see what it was like. So that is kind of unconventional. Hey Mel, it's fine if you lurk. Always welcome. But yeah, it's an unconventional technique. I haven't tried that before to see really how it is. But I use colored pencils a lot in my work. I have kind of been trying to mitigate it, but I might just kind of lean into it. The main reason I was trying to mitigate it was I was trying to figure out a better solution for sealing them, because if I wanted to seal it with, like, say, Gamvar or some other kind of solvent-based varnish like that, that stuff basically eats away the colored pencil and lifts it up entirely, which is not ideal. So I was trying for a little while to go without it, but I might just like make some scrap pieces of different examples of the finish, like how I would normally build up a painting, and just see what works and what doesn't. I think we'll use that guy. Don't need any of those for now. So I'm gonna try and blast through this as fast as I can. So we'll see how well it works. I have a tendency to be very methodical with this kind of stuff, so having to try and keep it to a stream might actually force me to make some tough choices and speed up things more than I usually do. And early on like this, I play around with a lot of different colors just to see what will actually show up. The color pencil tends to show up nicely on darker surfaces. So I try and usually use it as like a transition thing, or if I'm using a atypical color like this red to help pop out some things. And shortly before this, while I was waiting for my kid to fall asleep, I was looking around on Steam at the Steam right now has an indie game festival going on where you can try out a bunch of demos. So I was just kind of downloading a bunch to try out later after the stream. One I was actually kind of curious about was this one that's called Bear and Breakfast, where you're a bear that has to manage a bed and breakfast. And that kind of sounded interesting. And there were a few others as well that I was like, oh, that looks neat. I'm kind of curious about that. If anyone else has looked into that at all, like, please feel free to chime in. Like, what have you seen that looks interesting to you? Or if you haven't, check it out later. And it goes until, I believe you have access to the demos until Tuesday, the 22nd. So you only have a limited time to kind of hop on it. Now, before I did this, so last stream on Thursday, we did the acrylic lay-in and then this layer of gouache over it and removed it where we wanted our lights to be. Before tonight, I actually sprayed it again with workable fixative to keep the gouache from being disturbed, because it is still water soluble and easily disturbed until you apply some more fixative over it to kind of set it in place. And since we're coming back in with some more acrylic on top of this, I don't want to have to worry about that. I've done that before where I did not apply enough of a layer, or I didn't apply a layer and I just watched it come up off the surface as I was brushing on, which sucks. It sucks. Let me know if this camera angle is good or if I need to change it or something. It looks good from what I can tell on my monitor and all that, but I'm still kind of trying to figure out some placement for so I can lean a little bit closer and all that. And don't want to have my head pop in the frame as much as possible because I know that'll just block the view. And so other artists that have done techniques similar to this, I've seen them work in on top of gessoed illustration board. I don't like that. I don't like the feel of gesso at all. So I actually prefer the raw illustration board myself. This is a hot press, if I remember right. I've actually been thinking of picking up some cold press to try out to see if I would like that more for the texture, especially for this stage, because I think it could be good. Might actually offer some more texture within the colored pencils than this. So I'm just kind of going back in, and these areas where they look white now, but they were kind of like a light pink purple, so I'm just trying to reestablish that. That'll give us a base to work off of with the acrylic too. So after the stream on Thursday, I was actually wondering to myself really how this would work with watercolor. Watercolor, you can do this technique with watercolor because watercolor tends to want to stain more than gouache. It can be hard to lift out. Hey, Karam. Nice to see you, man. Watercolor tends to stain more than gouache, so it's hard to lift out with this method, but I don't know. It might... The gouache pick out is good with like an underpainting. With this, though, I feel like it might be a little too opaque for shadows, so maybe watercolor could afford that because watercolor tends to be more translucent. Even when you put it down opaquely, it really depends on the surface underneath. So that might actually be good for something like this. Let me see. Let's see what this sky blue light looks like on top of this. Just out of curiosity. That could maybe work. But you know what I need to get is, oh, actually, forget that. Grab you, and then that looks like white to me, doesn't it? Gray, green light. We'll try it. If I get the white underneath. Yeah. Yeah, it just... Yeah, that's how that goes. So because like color pencil is not opaque at all, it really gets affected by the color that's underneath it. So sometimes with these lighter colors, you just go in with white, and because it's being affected so much by the color underneath it, you kind of need to go white just to actually see what kind of change might be happening on the surface. And if you have any questions about this, just let me know. I'll be happy to answer it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep rambling here and there. Partly because I use colored pencil like this is why I really don't consider myself to be a painter by any stretch of the imagination, compared to some other folks that can really, like, honest to God paint. I mean, so much of this technique relies on drawing that I just kind of roll with it. So it's subtle, and I don't know if it's coming up in the camera. Just seeing if the white balance is like bouncing or not, but I think it's staying. This colored pencil, though, is helping soften those edges. Yeah. One thing with, like, so were you like digitally playing? How are you playing air painting? Like, what was the medium? Watercolor. So yeah, watercolor is interesting. You kind of have to... It's weird. I feel like you can really only mix two colors max together. Sometimes you can do three if it's a tint that's going to lighten it up or whatever, but watercolor likes to get muddied really fast. And it seems to not like this kind of thing. Nathan Fowkes, though, does some amazing stuff with that, and he's the main person I kind of look to for watercolor stuff. And I would love to take his course again on schoolism. Maybe actually like do the mentored side of it. But yeah, the blue on green, I don't know if it like would stack well, but if you have it like bleeding into, like if you do it wet into wet, like green into blue, and then go on top of that with like a more like some watercolor mixed in with gouache, like white gouache or something, to help make the opaque, the light parts stand out more opaquely, I think that could work. Just kind of spitballing on that idea. Watercolor is another thing that I tend to go all kind of which ways with it. Like lately, I've been doing a lot of laying in my drawing using a brown fountain pen ink, and because that's water soluble, it's interesting. It's water soluble, but once you mess with it with water, it tends to lock up on the page after that and not get really disturbed. So I'll kind of do it as like an underpainting, and then I go back in with watercolor and kind of let the fountain pen like do a lot of my modeling for me. And then I'll go on top of that with more opaque, like some white gouache mixed in with watercolor to get some more opaque areas. So I'm just kind of hitting. It won't look like much right now. But this kind of just it lays groundwork for me for the colored for the for the acrylic, because the acrylic I'll kind of take it in here and scumble it in, and then save a few key points of like juicier strokes for like the very highlights. Hey, Alan. Good to see you, man. Did you catch your wife after the podcast and stop her from heading out of the house before you left? Oh, thanks. Did you catch her? I guess like, did you catch her like as she was stepping out the door, or you just kind of quickly flagged her down? So like, hey, wait up! Don't leave just yet. Oh my God. Yeah, we've had that happen a few times. Like Ange is about to leave, and I realized like she forgot to bring out something with her or something like that, and I've had to like flag her down. There was one time where was it our I think it was at our house. She was about to leave, and she needed to bring something that she forgot. And so I went to go flag her down, but she didn't see me, so I had to like start frantically like tapping on the car like a madman. So for me, a lot of this shows up. Like I actually can see a lot of this, but I don't know if how much of this is actually coming through on the camera. I can kind of see like some areas from it are showing up, and then some areas seem to not be. Okay. Oh man. Oh yeah, yeah. That was at the condo then. Yeah, that must have been like a heck of a thing to flag down. Not as easy as like just stepping out the house. Oh, cool. Thanks for letting me know too, Mel. Actually, I'm gonna switch over. We need a different blue. I need. Oh, there we go. Apologies for that. Hope it's like not too aggravating over the microphone. Yeah, that's okay. That's closer to like what I kind of want for that mid blue. So one thing with the color pencil, yeah, there. So what's funny is like, I know some artists that hate the sound of airbrush compressors. They don't like how it starts up like all of a sudden and stuff like that. And I don't know, for some reason I'm very okay with that sound. I kind of just like tune it out. It becomes like background noise when I'm working. And same thing with like pencil sharpeners. It's a nice like audio ASMR break in my brain. So the one thing I wanted to mention about like the color pencil thing on this is these are I love the scratching of the pencil on paper too. It's such a nice sound. Actually, unfortunately, I can't hear it really right now because I have the headphones on to chat. But anyway, so with these are Prismacolor pencils, which they are wax based, unlike say Polychromos pencils from Faber-Castell, which are oil based. I've tried both. I kind of prefer the wax based more. Maybe that is just a force of habit because when you first start using colored pencils in like school and all that, this is the type that you get familiar with. Um, and I think it kind of works a little bit better on the paint than the oil-based ones. But you kind of have to apply it lightly, because if you go too hard, like really burnish it into the surface, it builds up a lot of wax, which becomes a pain to work on top of later. So you kind of have to just go in with a light touch and slowly build it up. Let's see. So I'm thinking what we'll do is we will have the acrylic, the final layer of acrylic, kind of work from top to bottom. So like the main focus will be around here, and then as we fade down, I'll use less and less of it, and we won't have as much of it like towards the bottom. That's kind of the goal I'm working with for now on this. We'll see how much I stick to that, but I'm gonna kind of go in with that mindset. Just checking the time, because at some point I'll just have to say fuck it and move over to acrylic. Let's see. Think second. Okay, that's not too bad. Just to kind of kick it back a little. Let's actually do this. I haven't decided yet. To be honest, I kind of talked about this in the last stream. Like, I don't have a huge love for the rest of Masters of the Universe. Really, I just kind of dig Skeletor's design and his general personality. Um, he kind of gives off the same vibes that I like about like say Palpatine, where Palpatine is yeah, like I so the Masters of the Universe, I didn't have a strong tie to when I was younger. It was instead like when I was younger. I think the thing that took its place was Thundercats from that age, and Mumra's a man. Mumra's a character I would probably do a design of, like a drawing of or something. I know we kind of briefly talked about that in like the Discord chat, but Mumra, Monstar, and Skeletor are all like the three 80s designs I really like. But I do love that Skeletor just he knows that he's evil and he just doesn't care. He has that same uh, attitude as like Palpatine does, where Palpatine's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm evil, I don't care, and he has like loads of fun as a result. Yeah, he's a skeleton that actually I don't know if it was that in the original thing. Did was it because the main thing I remember was the his like origin story in not the 90s revival of He-Man, but the one that came out somewhere in the 2000s, where he was like a wizard and like some magic basically turned his made his face melt off, and then I think Evelyn did a spell or something to save him, but it it disfigured him like this, and then you could clearly see like he just leaned into it. He was like, "Yep, yeah, whatever, skeleton now, cool." The thing about so like Mumra and Monstar, Monstar is one I like his design a lot. I don't care about like the rest of the characters. Thundercats, I actually kind of like a lot of the characters on that, but both of them, like I love the transformation design on both of them, and Mumra especially has a fantastic design when he's like withered and also when he's powered. And I think Monstar, if I remember right, has like an okay one when he's normal, and then a kind of like a Gundam when he's actually powered up. And what's funny is like I think because of Mumra, I always in my head think that Skeletor has a like a similar kind of thing, and he doesn't. He's just this is him. Let's see. Might go back in with some black to tighten up some of these areas. Yeah, actually, so in that trailer for the new one, it looks like he does have spells. But then I was funny enough, like I was actually thinking about it the other day. Like I don't know if I've actually ever seen him cast a spell outside of that one where it's the gif of him going into the mirror and then he breaks the mirror after he steps into it, which defies all logic, but that's how Skeletor rolls. But besides that, I don't remember him ever casting a spell in the bits that I watched. But I full-heartedly admit that that's likely a bad memory on my part, and I'm sure he cast a lot of spells since he is a wizard. I don't remember the what is it? Frank Langella was the live action one, correct? Because I don't even think he cast a spell really, except for like I think like shooting lightning or something like that. Yeah, I I love the interview he gave for that. Yeah, that's kind of just what I remember is like generic zapping. Like I don't remember him doing any kind of spells or anything like that. Like just throwing magic at people with his staff, and that's been the extent of it from what I recall. Holy shit, did he really do all of that in He-Man? Because, honest to God, the only one I remember is that he zaps people with his staff. I don't remember him doing any teleport. I feel like teleporting would be. That would have solved the whole Castle Grayskull thing real easy. Grow plants, yeah, that's a. Yeah, when the way it's put like that, it makes it seem like he's just a good gardener. Hey, Errol. We're actually Errol. You probably know this as well. So we don't think none of us can remember Skeletor actually doing any spells outside of zapping people with his staff. But Kurum pulled up a Wikipedia description of Skeletor and has abilities that I'm like, I don't remember any of these abilities at all, to be honest. I think he just zapped people in the movie. Errol, do you remember? I mean, you know that movie way better than I do. Did he actually do anything else? See, was that him or was that like an artifact that caused that rift? I thought that was an artifact of some kind. Yeah, see, yeah, I remember the cosmic key. Thank you, Errol. Yeah, I could have sworn that it was some thing that he had tried to get a hold of. I'm not gonna lie, that Wikipedia entry makes him seem way more powerful than I remember him. Mumra, I distinctly remember Mumra having separate powers going on in like various episodes and stuff. How did he trap the sorceress? I don't remember. All right, let's see. Gonna get a black. Sorry, I'm just like reading the chat right now. Yeah, that's kind of what I remember Skeletor is. He zaps people with his staff, and he makes random Rube Goldberg level schemes. Mumra, I remember having way more spell casting ability than Skeletor. He didn't need to. Mumra didn't have to do science because he actually had magic. I distinctly remember Mumra having like basically a crystal ball looking glass pool kind of thing. And then other abilities that like you can do through that as well. Okay, yeah, this black is helping a lot. Yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. They really, and this was something that did we mention this in the last one? Yeah, I think we mentioned this in the last stream with about Skeletor. Is I like the idea of Skeletor or like someone like Mumra is way cooler in my head than the actual reality. And I think the same thing with like the He-Man cartoon, where on paper you're like, yeah, that sounds amazing, and then you see the execution, you're like, oh, this isn't great. The trailer for the new one actually looks like I think how people remember it or would want to remember it. Yeah, the original cartoon. I'm trying to remember. So I know that, and we talked about this a little bit last stream too. Like I remember that Topcraft, which is basically the precursor to Studio Ghibli and Disney Studios Japan, they were the ones responsible for Thundercats and the old animated Hobbit. But He-Man, I don't know who was the main production team on that, and I think that Mattel just did not want to kick any money to it if they can help it. They had like the comic within the toys, which was the main way that they kind of told the lore. And if I remember right, the cartoon was kind of like a, oh yeah, we need one of those. Yeah, it's not good. Now something that something that I thought was pretty good. Yeah, well, so the old one is, if I remember right, the old one is. No, I was going to say it's two separate cartoons, but I believe it's only one. Just one that is incredibly remixed. But I think it might also be two that had been like cut and reassembled. Um, they did that apparently with a lot of imported cartoons. Oh, Filmation did the original He-Man. Okay. Yeah, so right, wasn't Filmation a domestic studio? They might have had to like they're probably their measly amount that they gave the animation studio really only afforded them like a tiny amount of movement. I do know that the new Voltron isn't that the whole series is on Netflix, so yeah, you should be able to catch up with that. But the one thing, so the one show I was gonna say, like, I'm kind of surprised no one has remade it yet. It like boggles my mind. Is Pirates of Dark Water. I remember that show when I was younger, and that's still a show that holds up really, really well. Yeah, like the villain was scary. There was actually a lot of really good designs in it. I remember seeing the toys when I was younger. I saw the toys in store before I saw the cartoon, and I was like, "What is this crazy ass thing?" And I'm kind of actually surprised no one has like remade it because it had really good bones. See, so I wonder. I don't know. Like, so I don't think that's like that would stop anyone from doing it because like as I said, Errol, like they're making a Toxic Avenger movie. I don't think it's a lack of cojones. I wonder if it's like a copyright issue or something where it's not able to be made right now for one reason or another. Like maybe it's the current rights holder or something. It's like maybe it's like split up between several companies, so they can't make it because it would take too many cooks in the kitchen to get permission going. It might be something like that. But yeah, oh darn it, that just broke. Yeah, if they remade it, I think that would do exceptionally well in modern day. And it was kind of like thinking about it. Pirates of the Dark Water to me is basically that was like the closest I ever got to having like a cartoon that was like Legend of Zelda for me in terms of like the feel and the world and all that. Like they're not one to one, obviously, because really there's only been one game that kind of is like that. But it gave the same kind of vibes for me, where I was like, yeah, this is great. Like I would love to see anything with this. Another show I'm kind of surprised they haven't remade it, and I wonder if it's the same thing where it's like a rights issue that has prevented it from happening. Is Dino Riders. That's another one where it had a really good concept, or a fun concept at least, and the toys were great. I definitely had like several of the toys. The cartoon is terrible. It is gonna boggles my mind that it's gonna do well. Just because like I feel like there's not like a fan base for oh, what did you watch during lockdown, Errol? Was that Toxic or Dino Riders that you watched in lockdown? Oh yeah, see, so that was like kind of what I was telling you. Like I rewatched the first one in lockdown too. Like I forget when in 2020 I rewatched it, but I don't feel like And I know I talked about this like briefly with you, but like I feel like most time when things are being remade, it's either a neat idea with bad execution, or it's something that was good, like it was something that was good, like say Halloween, and doing a reboot down the road. It's like, why do a reboot? The original was perfect. There's not really a reason to reboot it. But like Toxic Avenger, I feel like it has no merit, or very very little merit. Like I don't think it's it's such schlock that it's I don't think it warrants much of any reason to reboot it. And Dino Riders, there's a reason it only has 13 episodes. But the toys I think lasted the equivalent of what 2 seasons of a TV show would have gotten. So the toys like outlasted the cartoon, because the cartoon was so bad. But the Jason the Wheel Warriors, I don't remember that. And honestly, the only time I think of like like anything that sounds like a Wheel Warrior thing, I always think of like the guys in Return to Oz, the Wheelers. That's another one where I'm like, yeah, you could do a remake, but the original was pretty perfect, or close to perfect for me, especially in terms of like the voice casting and all that. Like, uh, unless they got, I feel like even if they got Keith David to be the voice of Goliath again, it wouldn't be the same. It's like the same. It's like the same kind of thing as like James Earl Jones being Darth Vader. Like you hear him nowadays, and he just sounds so tired. But if they did remake Gargoyles, I don't think I would be mad about it. I would say it annoys me because I know Disney recently said that they are shifting away from producing Blu-rays or any physical media if they can help it, um, which means I'm never going to get my Blu-ray of Gargoyles. I just have my like DVD copies to contend with, and then it on streaming, obviously. Yeah, that's true. Isn't he 85, I think, right now, or something like that? Oh no, that pencil just fell. 90. My God. They're going to run him into the grave as Vader. So a live action adaptation of Gargoyles, I think I'd be interested in, as long as it's not Michael Bay. I don't know who I would want to handle a live action remake though. Really? Oh, I wonder if that'll be fun to play. So I'm always leery of the themed board games like that with like licensed tie-ins, because a lot of times I feel like they're just banking off of the license itself, and there's not a whole lot of care given to the rules. Like there was a Aliens board game that came out not too long ago, and it apparently does not play well. But there's a board game that does not have the license for Aliens, but they basically have done an Aliens board game, and that one does. That one actually is really fun to play with. And like I remember, oh god, this was like 7 years ago at this point. Maybe 6 years ago. Like an Inception board game came out, and that allegedly was terrible to play. Very stylish, very nice looking, but it was just apparently complete ass to play. So I think that's one of the rare ones where it works. The Thing board game. That one I've heard I think is pretty okay. Because it replicates the dread feeling well and everything. The Alien one apparently doesn't handle the tension too well. It kind of bounces between it working and then it not working, and it happens too often. And apparently the end game was also a bit of a slog. So real quick, just as a quick aside from the board game and 80s cartoon talk, the colored pencil I kind of was using to create some directionality to the strokes, and now I'm just using this blue color pencil to kind of lighten up some areas within the shadows and let them breathe a little more. And I think I'm going to be going to acrylic soon. Just this will just kind of get a little bit further along. I think I need to add some kind of I think I need to do this same kind of thing to over here as well, and kind of let this shadow breathe a little bit more. But I think I need a different color for that, so I'm going to keep looking. Yeah, though, the Thing board game I've heard does work. And that is one that I was kind of interested in, where I was like, oh, that looks neat. Grab you as well. That's kind of just the same color. Oh, sorry, Carm, I didn't see your message earlier. So it wasn't a pop-up book. It was basically the dream levels were represented by like concentric circles. The overall board game kind of looked like this, and you would start on this outside track. Don't even know if this is showing up, to be honest. But you would start on this outside track, and then you would kind of work in to get to the center, which was like, what was that in the movie? Basically like the core of his dreams or whatever. And then you'd have to try and get back out. And there was also, I think, a way to incorporate limbo into that. It apparently did not execute well. So who would they... Oh, interesting. So who would they cast in the live-action Gargoyles, Errol? I'm assuming it's Goliath. Ron Perlman as Goliath, I'm assuming. So, well, I don't. But Ron Perlman's ancient. You could also have him as like Hudson or something. Um, okay, those picks aren't too bad. I don't know if I would have The Rock. I could see Dave Bautista as Goliath. Uh, I could also see Jason Momoa if they want to do like a. If they want to have him slightly younger, and I think Momoa would be. He'd be appropriate for that, fit wise. Keith David. The only thing with Keith, so like Keith David would be perfect. Like his voice is perfect, but isn't he relatively short? He's like my height, isn't he? Like 5'8". Yeah, so like I'm trying to think if Momoa could be in any other position. He might. The thing is like Momoa might be too recognizable, but and yeah, Keith David is also old. That's the only issue. That's the other issue with Keith David too. Um, but yeah, Dave Bautista, like he kind of melts into whatever roles he's in. Like I don't really think about the fact that like, oh, he's Dave Bautista. And he has that like right body type where it's muscular, but it's not muscular like how The Rock is, where The Rock is basically several sequoias strapped together to form a human. Oh, Jeff Bridges as Hudson would be interesting. If he was younger, I would have Ed Asner. But he's too old now at this point. Actually, come to think of it, Ed Asner is Hudson, isn't he? In the cartoon. I didn't even think about that. I was just. Brian Cox would be excellent choice as well. I am fairly certain Ed Asner is actually Hudson in the cartoon. Like I was originally thinking like, oh, you need someone that sounds like Hudson that can also look like irascible and cranky and everything. And then I realized like I'm pretty sure Ed Asner was the reason that they had him as the voice. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so God, if they got Ed Asner from like if you had this as like the time traveling casting where you could kind of pluck your actors from when they were prime, I would have Ed Asner as Hudson. Brian Cox nowadays I think would be pretty good. Just seeing what time it is. So I think if I were to do this in the future, I would probably do the gouache back underneath the acrylic. I don't know if I quite like it being on top. I may have to try it with watercolor and see. Errol, who do they have as the boys, Brooklyn, Lexington, and Broadway? See if I can get the light parts to work a little bit better, and then we'll move into acrylic. Looks kind of like it's coming up well on the screen. Whoa. Okay, the Broadway and Lexington casting has to be reversed. Because those don't make sense otherwise. Like, Broadway was a big guy. Like, you have Rami Malek as that? Like, I see Rami Malek as Lexington. And I can see Oscar Isaac as Brooklyn. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, like, David Harbour is Lexington. That don't make sense. To be honest, unfortunately, like I don't know if David Harbour would ever do a costume thing again after Hellboy. All right, man. See you in a little bit. Should be around until like I think the latest will probably be like 12:30 or so. Uh, we'll see how long the acrylic takes. But thanks for stopping by, man. Uh, yeah, let's switch over. I think we are in a good enough spot to switch over. So we're just gonna put all these away. And at this point, like I've lost track exactly of where everybody goes in this damn thing. Like, oh no, this yellow one is not in a spot that makes sense. Oh well. Man, what's funny is like I saw someone on Facebook. They were like, "Oh, I watched it," and they just posted an image of like a panel from the Mike Mignola movie. Or sorry, it's the Mike Mignola comic. And just Hellboy going like, "Oh crap," and I was like, "No, is it really that bad?" And then watching it, oh, such a rough movie. Okay. Ooh. All right, I'm gonna mute myself real quick just so I can get up and move this colored pencils and grab some brushes, and I'll be right back. Okay, I think we have everything we need. So with the acrylic, I don't need to worry about fixing anything right now. The acrylic doesn't really disturb the colored pencils, partly because it's applied so dryly, partly because acrylic, that's just kind of how it is. Later on, if I were to do, say, like a thing of matte medium over this to seal the whole surface and kind of unify it, I may have to spray some kind of fixative or even spray matte medium out of an airbrush to kind of like put like a pre-fixed layer down on the colored pencil before I start brushing over the whole thing. I think that kind of vigorous brushing does start to disturb it and lift it up a little. So one thing I needed to do before I start, I have this fresh pot of water right here. I'm going to put in this wetting agent, which helps reduce the surface tension of the water, which actually allows it to flow a little bit better. You don't need a whole lot. It's something like, what's the dilution? Yeah, like, okay, I actually probably added too much into that because they say like 2 to 4 drops to an 8 fluid ounce cup of water, 1 fluid ounce to 1 gallon of water. So you can kind of see like it a little bit of it goes a long way, which is pretty great. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to work with some flats for this to start with before I switch over to rounds. And I'm going to kind of use the flats to help chisel the form a little. And I think, yeah, we'll basically start from the largest and kind of work down from there. So I'm making up the phthalo blue with the Hansa yellow again to make that same kind of green color. We're just going to add some white as well to lighten it up and tint it. Actually, let me switch over real quick. Yeah. I should look into seeing if there's a way to do like transitions between the scenes on Streamlabs. I'm not sure. So we're going to start with this. I don't tend to put out a whole lot of paint, probably to my detriment. And we're going to apply this to start with relatively dry. I'll probably use the airbrush a little bit later to kind of help blend between things. Probably to spare you guys the sound of that, because I don't mind it, but I do know that some people would find that annoying. I will probably just stick to scumbling for the most part. Yeah, this is kind of how I work. Is I'll add a little bit, see how fast I go through the paint, and then keep adding more, so I have some to work with. And I know I mentioned this last stream. I don't use a wet palette at all. I just never had an interest in it. I just have a I have a spritzer over here that I use to basically kind of hit it to keep it moist and workable. So let's see where that gets me. All right. Ah, perfect. Because that could actually go a little bit lighter. But that's pretty close to the starting base, so I am not too bad about that. And this is the other thing I like about flats is I can use them to make thin strokes in addition to the wider strokes, so I can still kind of do my hatching. Oop. Forgot to take off some paint first. So yeah, that Hellboy movie, I wish it was better. Do you want to know the ugly truth of when I was like, "Oh no, this might be bad," even though like I held out hope for a long time, was the minute they cast Mila Jovovich in it, I was like, "Oh no, this could probably be bad." And that's just because she stars in her husband's terrible movies. Like, I genuinely don't know what I've seen her in besides Fifth Element that I was like, hey, she's pretty good. And this is actually a really fun or good movie. even that, when they said it was going to be dark, gritty, I mean, granted, when you hear someone even say that in Hollywood, it is kind of like a, ooh, what are you implying with that? Even then, I still held out hope. Um, to be honest, it was probably the same amount of hope as I had for the Mila Jovovich casting, where I was like, oh no, well, maybe it's not too bad. But no, it just was. That movie was so terrible. And I do think it must suck to. The thing is like, it must suck to be Mike Mignola on that, because to have everyone prefer the version that someone else made that you feel you didn't have as much of a hand in versus the one that you do, that's got to be rough. That really has to be rough. But I also feel like they were kind of dumb to basically adapt the storyline of like the big Hellboy arc as the first outing for this Hellboy. I mean, I know that he probably wanted to do that, but you know, his opinion probably changed over the years, and maybe it was the fact that the Del Toro one was so beloved that he felt he had to take back creative reins on it. I don't know. So if the actually, let me see. Is there a way I can lower? No, I'd have to get up and adjust that. If it's looking too bright, like if it's too much of a hot spot around here, just let me know and I can get up and adjust the white balance on it. So one issue I'm not like a big fan of with this setup is I feel like I have hot spots on the top parts of my paintings that I always have to fight against. So I'm kind of just going through. I'm laying in. I'm not going for like a scumble just yet, but I am wicking off a lot of the paint before I put it down. Just as I kind of feel like when there's more paint on the brush, I don't have as much control with it. So that's why I kind of tend to wick off as much of it as possible. Just going through and tackling the areas where I'm picturing the light hitting it the most. And we'll kind of go through and hit Skeletor first. Actually, I will actually be right back, I think, because my wash basin, I need to change it out. It's actually dirtying up the paint a lot, or it's dirtying up the brushes a lot. I'm getting a lot of fugitive colors introduced into it. So I will be right back. And when I come back, we'll tackle the rest of this. Okay. Yeah, it was a good thing I did that. It was that wash basin was really funky. It had a lot of acrylic crap in it that I just needed to get out. So hopefully we can go from here. So I'm basically gonna kind of work on Skeletor on his face first, and then I'll kind of tackle his hood once I get his face more or less established. And I think before I do his hood, I'm going to probably key in the background so it's so I have that to reference against. Let's see. So just hitting some areas. Now that I'm kind of using this slightly smaller brush, I can kind of get into some spots. Errol, I don't know if you had a chance before you got on the stream, but did you look at that one game I mentioned, Sable? Because I think you would probably enjoy the look of that a lot. Mm. Yeah, did you? So you at least saw a trailer though. So you saw it looks visually it looks pretty great, and it's an RPG. But like RPG in I think the same way that like Zelda is an RPG. Which I know some people would argue is not an RPG. Which I guess it isn't. It's like action adventure. Yeah, and you can ride around on that hover bike, which looks neat. Looks like a fun traversal system. I actually, like, right before the stream, I downloaded a bunch of demos that I don't think I'm going to be able to get to, but it was all of things that I was like, oh, that looks neat, that looks neat. So I would like to try them. I saw there were two demos for city building games where you terraform Mars. Yep. Yeah, same thing. Like, a lot of indie games are way more appealing to me than the AAA games. Especially a lot of indie games I feel like kind of respect my time a little bit better than the AAA games. Uh, Not to say like indie games don't have things that are like huge epics and all that, but the ones that I'm more interested in, I feel like is not as huge. It feels like if it is a big epic, it's not as much busy work as like the AAA game has, or like the bigger titles in general. Like, I was kind of thinking that with like Disco Elysium, where it doesn't feel, even though there are side quests, it never feels like you're doing side quests. It all feels important to the case. Which, man, that's a game I need to finish. I'm so far behind on that game. Oh yeah, I really want to play more of it. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I like the look of it. I like the mechanics in it. Um, all of it kind of speaks to me. Just have not given it its proper amount of playtime yet. That and Outer Wilds. No, yeah, no, it is called Outer Wilds. I always get it confused with the other one, Outer Worlds. It's the non Fallout game. The one I'm thinking of is the one that does not remind people of Fallout. It's the one about the astronaut stuck in the time loop. Oh, yeah, Naruto Boy. So Ange got a copy of it because she kickstarted it, and I have not even touched it yet. But that had a demo shortly before it released, and just a little bit of that I played. I was like, yeah, this is definitely my jam. Just in terms of like the look of it and what seemed like the lore. And then Hades is also another one which I need to get back to. I fell off it. Like, I didn't stop playing it because I lost interest. I just got busy, and then other games came out that I was like, oh wow, I'd love to try some of that too. But like I feel like I'm near-ish to completing my first run in Hades, and I would love to go back and actually, do that instead of having it just hanging over my head. Plus, I really like that studio, so I absolutely would love to finish that game. Oh, yeah, man. Wait until the Steam sale, because I guarantee it'll be discounted. But yes, this is my personal feelings. I feel that the Bethesda games are a terrible buy to get on consoles. If you have the ability to get it elsewhere, like if you're able to get it on a PC, like the smart answer is always to get it on PC. And that's just partly because of the modding community on both the Fallout games and Skyrim games. Or sorry, the Elder Scroll games and the Fallout games. It's so vast. Like when I was playing Skyrim, I was running around in armor that made me look like Sauron for the majority of the game. So, Errol, I've got to tell you something. Apparently, I don't know if this will like color your feelings on finishing it once and then feeling like you could uninstall it, but I do know that the story is not complete when you finish it one time. You have to finish it a few. You have to make a successful run a few times. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I do know that you only got into it relatively recently, but yeah, like from here on out, I really I would advise strongly to be like, yeah, only get the Bethesda games on a PC if your PC can handle it, because the modding community on the Bethesda games is so amazing and can really give you some like really amazing things. Like one thing I remember in Skyrim that I had a mod of was it basically created. I just want because I had a feeling you would. I had a feeling that if you completed it once, you'd be like, "Yep, okay," and then uninstall it. But yeah, it's not completed until you finish it a few times, I believe. Then again, that is also a game that partly through the upgrades. I'm sorry, just realized my head was in the way of the camera. Partly because of the upgrades, and I think partly just as you get better at it, it does get easier. Slowly but surely, but it does get easier. Yeah, I'm not surprised though that they're making they're trying to do a Fallout London mod. There was a set of modders that basically was recreating an older Elder Scrolls game in Skyrim. They were trying to recreate Morrowind within Skyrim. And last I checked, I think they completed it. Like, it was released and everything. I'm going to add some matte medium off to the side just to help with adding some more body to these paints. Just so like if I have it mixed up, then I don't have to burn through as much paint as I did or as I was. Trying to think what other games on the Steam Fest that I was interested in. There was one that was kind of like a Harvest Moon game called The Witch in the Forest. And that sounded really fascinating to me. I like Harvest Moon games, and if I can see a new take on it, then that'd be pretty cool. Because I feel like Stardew Valley kind of just made the perfect base version of a Harvest Moon game. I would say, Errol, you should pick up Phasmophobia so you can play with Ange and I. If that's on like sale during the Steam Summer sale or something like that, I would definitely say you should pick it up so we could play it. It's that was one of those games that we realized we tried playing the first level on it, and we kind of realized you do kind of need at least 3 people to tackle it. Yeah, Ange has been trying to find other people to play with us because she really wants to play it, and we really just need like a third. And I know we have to get back into Grounded once we can find some time for that. Yeah, well, isn't that the thing? When you're an adult, you don't play in clans. You just find friends and just say, "Hey, do you guys want to meet up and play?" My God, I don't think I've been part of a clan since like Jedi Outcast. Way back on that. Which actually, so I know you're on. I know you looked around on Steam. Have you ever looked on a GOG for games? Because if you go on there, for one thing, it's DRM free. But second is there's loads of older games on there that Steam does not have, and like Jedi Outcast just reminded me of that, which I consider to be like one of the perfect Jedi games around. Yeah, you know what? God, like I barely played around with it, but I want to try out that Tailspire thing a little bit more because I do think like our group could D&D. Um, oh yeah, yeah, IO for other indie games. Yeah, you should check out GOG as well. It's run by CD Projekt, which is the Witcher and Cyberpunk people. But loads of classic games on there. If you ever want to like try some classic PC games, and new stuff on there as well. But I mainly use it for like classic games kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, you got it. The I want to say it's called Switch.io, but I don't think it is. I think it's just .io. But yeah, regarding the D&D thing, like I know that we could probably get a group together, even though we all have like kids and shit, um, that make that hard to coordinate. But I think we could do like an online thing. And I really would love to figure out the Tailspire thing because the Tailspire thing kind of does what I like, which is the miniature part of it. And actually, like you can throw like physically or physic based dice too, which is interesting. You know what? Like, we would have to just bite the bullet and have one of us just do it. Um, like I know I probably wouldn't mind being a DM, but I also know like the storytelling aspect of it. I don't know how good I would be at that part of it. But if we just needed someone to basically keep us on track and run it, like I that would be something I would be fine with, you know. When Alan gets back, I should ask him if he's the DM for his group, and if he is, has he always been the DM, or did he slowly shift into that? So I'm just gonna add a little bit of white to this. To hit his teeth. Just want to make sure I am not in frame. And I'm for highlights, I actually like to use gesso. I feel like it's nice and thick compared to what titanium white would be like. Oh wow. Within the same campaign? Oh, interesting. Feeling mostly alright with it. Skeletor is really, his face is the only bit right now that is kind of tackled, at least from the acrylic side of things. I'll see how I'm feeling about it once I block in more of the background. is too soupy. So I'm not getting like nice fine lines like I would like. So I'm just going to actually instead kind of mess with it. And then I do realize it's like 12, so this might be a case of I get it mostly done on stream and then polish it up like sometime later this week. Actually, yeah, let's blast in this background, because I feel like I can't do much more to Skeletor without reestablishing the how I want that back to look. So again, I'm going to use gesso for the white, because it's a pretty powerful white. It's really bright, really white. It's more opaque than, say, titanium white. As long as you don't water it down. Too much. Actually, let me see. You know what? I shouldn't do that with a round. Should go in with a flat. So yeah, it's coming along good, but I do think I mean I did this solely to kind of figure out a different technique and see how it would work. And I'm kind of split on it. Like, it works. The technique does work. I think I might need to use a different medium, like use watercolor instead of gouache for the shadows. And then maybe just see how that works with this, because it might just be a technique that only works with oil as the shadows. I will have it. I will have it available afterwards. I I admittedly did not set up a shop yet for it because I was going to scan it so I could have a decent photo to put up for it. And then it'll be relatively inexpensive. I don't think more than 200, probably like 150 or something like that. I think if I put more care into the border and stuff, so it wasn't running into the edge of the page as much, I'd be more willing to price it a little bit higher. But also, like, honestly, you think about it, it's about 4 hours. Or no, 6 hours, I guess. 10:30, 11:30, 12:30. Yeah, like 6 hours total, or close to. It's not a super involved painting. So, like, I didn't really do any studies for this or any like legwork that I normally do with my other illustrations that I price higher. Yeah, that's a fair point. Maybe, I mean, I might have to ask the business manager slash my wife what she thinks it should be priced at. And this is actually the first painting that I've done on the stream, like start to finish. So this will actually be the first one up on the shop. But I do have prints of my other illustrations and that kind of thing available on there too. But this will be the first one from the stream up on something, because The first stream I did, actually no, it wasn't even a stream. It was just a recording. That was like I was showing my patrons on my Patreon how I do masking for illustrations if I want to do like some airbrushing. So it was some recording of me working on the white tree illustration for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, something like that. And then the first stream I did was the Kaijun stream, I believe. And then, which was in like a sketchbook. It wasn't. It's just a relatively quick drawing. And then the other one was like in Blender, working around on like figuring out a thumbnail for another illustration. Yeah, she would say just I mean she would scoff at my price suggestion. She'd be like, no, it should be higher. So I'll let her set the price. It is the sensible thing to do. So cutting in that white helped a lot in terms of kind of reassessing how it's coming together and stuff. So I think the next thing once I do that, once I finish this, is tackle the hood. Which actually, what time is it? 12:20. I might just kind of power in a little bit of it and then do the little bits around like this area off stream, since it's kind of just pick and shovel work. You know, like there's no real finesse to it. It's just me powering in this background. And I got the main information I wanted, which was the top put in, so I can see how that interacts with the hood. just use up the last bit of gesso that I have. I will say, between this stream and last stream, I've had I Need a Hero just running nonstop in my head from that trailer. Okay. We're going to use that. I will get the rest of those little bits later down here. It's just, most of this is just pick and shovel stuff, and I would like to get the hood out of the way. So we're going to use that. I'm going to switch over to slat. I'm actually going to use some more yellow. I keep an incredibly messy palette. I kind of just fill things wherever I can, however I can. And if that's how it is, that's how it is. Oh, goodness. I definitely haven't heard it non-stop within the past few weeks. But since doing this stream, I've had it in my head a lot more the past few days. Oh, interesting. That created like a red. Alright, so let's see. Huh. That's actually like a kind of like a yellow ochre sorta color. Did not care for that, so I'm gonna take some, yeah, okay. That tracks more with what I was expecting. So it's really just gonna be a straight of this permanent violet with white. Because the yellow just muddied it up too much. Oh, they had it in the Guardians of... Wow, they had it in the Guardians of Galaxy gameplay. I guess if they were like cribbing from the MCU version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, that kind of makes sense. But then why do that like weird Logan Paul looking version of Star-Lord? And you said the gameplay for that Guardians of the Galaxy game looks bad too, right? Is it Square Enix is handling that the same as like they handled the Avengers game? Hmm. Someone else is handling the game. Interesting. You know, it shouldn't be hard to make a Guardians of the Galaxy game. Because I feel like you could do the, like something like a Mass Effect. I wouldn't want like Mass Effect's gameplay necessarily, but how they handled the whole feeling like you're part of a universe kind of thing. That aspect of it, I think you could be easier to do. Hey. No worries. I think I need to kind of introduce a darker, like just a slight step down from that purple I laid in. I might need to, you know what, I think I might need to get the quinacridone. Ah, perfect, which is right here. It's a acrylic paint. So actually, what this process is, it is acrylic paint. But what the initial lay-in was, we had a tight pencil drawing, washes of acrylic, and then I'm more or less experimenting with some different process things on this. So for the shadows, we actually did a wash of wash paint over it after fixing the acrylic with like workable fixative. When you apply workable fixative onto the surface, it causes the gouache to keep it from seeping into the paper, so you can actually use some water then and use it as like a pick out, similar to how you would with like a solvent with an oil paint. And then after that, we went in with some colored pencil here and there, and then where you started, I'm now starting to do like a more opaque pass in certain areas on the acrylic. Sorry, with acrylic on the top. But yeah, actually, if you want, you can if you end up watching the video on demand of last Thursday's stream. We go through the picking it out with the gouache and that kind of thing on that stream. Where we're finishing it up on this one just because it started to get a little too long. Mainly for commercial work here and there. For personal pieces and for some freelance, I'm trying to get more freelance doing this. But yeah, I don't tend to paint digitally for myself. Usually, if it's the needs for commercial work, I'll do digital. But I do use digital for like planning and figuring things out before I start committing things to traditional. Actually, the unfortunately got lost to time because I forgot to set up the video demand thing 2 weeks ago. But I was actually figuring out thumbnails for another illustration in Blender about 2 weeks ago. Just kind of moving the camera around a little scene I had set up to see what kind of setup I can find. And then if I am painting digital, it's pretty much Photoshop. I've tried other programs. I think it's just because I've been in Photoshop for so long that I'm really used to it. I have started to use Procreate more for thumbnailing and sketches and all that, and I've done a couple illustrations in Procreate, but not a whole lot compared to some of my other friends that work almost exclusively in that program. coating paint. That's interesting. What is that? I don't think I've heard of that. I can take a break in a moment to pull out some other illustrations that show more my usual technique. Or do you mean a gesso? Like, is it what you basically lay down at on like illustration board or whatever your substrate is to start with before you start putting on your actual like acrylic paint and everything? Or is that what it's traditionally used for? Oh, sorry. Is the coating paint basically is it what I'm guessing, I'm spitballing here. Is it what we call gesso here, whereas it's a paint that you use as a base layer on whatever paper that you're working on before you put down the acrylic paint? I'm kind of just guessing off of it being called coating paint. I was wondering if that's what it is. Let me see, where else can we go on this? Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. Again, just making a haphazard guess based off of the name of it, so I wasn't sure if that was on the mark or not. Oh, okay. Use water to make the paints usable, perhaps a little like aquarelle. Is it gouache then? I'm assuming if it's coating paint, or if it's called something like that, is it opaque compared to watercolor, aquarelle, which is more transparent? Oh, hi Nathy, thank you for joining. You're kind of catching it on the tail end, unfortunately. I'm not logging off anytime soon. Probably at the rate I'm going, I've probably got like 10 minutes at least going on. But we've taken it quite a bit of a ways from where it was at the start of the stream. Uh, Last Thursday, I had pretty much done the preliminary base for it. Like kind of took the painting up to about 30% completion, and then today we're kind of taking it to total finish, or at least as close as I can reasonably do within 2 streams. And this kind of started out as basically an experiment on process, just to see, just so I can kind of test some different working methodologies. And I figured I would do Skeletor since I had just seen the trailer for the new He-Man cartoon. Oh, thank you so much. It's so funny enough. A lot of it is there's actually very little blending going on. The majority of the blending that you're seeing happening is actually optical. So the blending is pretty much happening on the page to the eye. Like I didn't do, you know how you are in oil painting sometimes, where you kind of over blend it, or you blend it to kind of blur a lot of it going on. Any kind of blending or anything like that that's showing the forms in a softer light is pretty much just an optical effect. It's just kind of layering the things on top of each other. Actually, let's see. Let me take a look at this. Okay, Namey 91. That does sound like that sounds like gouache here, which is again, like, it's not transparent at all unless you unless you make it transparent with a lot of water, but otherwise it's very opaque, and it kind of like goes over in one shot on the page. There's not really, it covers really well. But it is also water soluble paint. But yeah, it's like you said, like it is more like acrylic paint, but it's water soluble versus like watercolor or aquarelle, which is more transparent. So I wonder if that is what coating paint is. Oh, thank you so much for the follow, Nathy. I had to switch around on my deck to see what was the notification noise that came up, just to make sure. So I'm just kind of analyzing it right now to see where else I need to kind of tackle it. The teeth I still am not like totally satisfied with, but as I said earlier, I needed to cut in the background and also work up the hood a bit more before I kind of reached a level that I was comfortable with the, so I was able to I'd be able to judge the face effectively. Okay, yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what I figured, naming 91. From just how you described it, it sounded very similar to gouache. So yeah, so I actually used, so to use your terms, like, so we used, after the pencils was down, I did a layer of acrylic, and then I actually did a uh, a wash of coating paint over it, which is gouache here. But for you, you would know it as coating paint. I used coating paint as the shadows, and then using water, I actually picked it out of the lights, and so only had the coating paint remain in the shadows, and then started to work back on top of that using colored pencil and acrylic. And Errol, I wonder if the teeth are. I do wonder if I need to build up the rest of the face a little brighter now to make the teeth not pop as much. I also wonder. I was gonna try and do like that glossy look to them, but I wonder if they're keyed too high in value. I'm guessing it might be a combination of the two things that's actually causing it to be like that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'll take a break in a moment to show like some of my other illustrations where that technique is a little more effective. This is the first time I've done that exact process, that order of operations, where the coating paint is on top of the acrylic paint, otherwise known as like gouache on. Oh yeah, gotcha. And no worries, Navy 91. Hey, we figured it out. We were able to figure it out between us. Like, no worries whatsoever. Yeah, you know, I wonder if I should. So I wonder if I should lower the value of the teeth and kind of keep that color around only the highlights, and then add just a tiny pop of that value, like up here, just to kind of make the skull pop a little. So, all right. I'm going to take a quick break before I tackle his face again. Oh, one other thing I saw. Oh, gotcha. So, Nathi, do you normally not blend optically? Do you usually blend by actually blending the paint? And then I'm going to quickly get some illustrations real quick to show some other similar techniques. So here's some other illustrations I've done. Um, these are kind of more in the usual techniques that I use. This one actually is pretty much watercolor. Oh, there we go. This one is pretty much watercolor and some acrylic on top, and then colored pencil as well. These all pretty much are those same techniques. They just kind of get layered a little bit differently. No, for the most part, I don't really use any extra paint. Uh, it really does just kind of get blended uh, by layering of different applications of techniques and paint and everything. This was a study that I did. It actually originally was a bit of a failure, and then went back and retweaked it and stuff. There's some pastel in the back just to kind of give some vibrancy, and then the face itself is just mostly colored pencil for the modeling of the form, to show, like, the roundness of the form and everything. And then, like, this rim light is basically a hit of acrylic paint. This one, I am not sure if this one's going to show up too well on camera because of the size of it, and because I had the camera keyed in for the size of the Skeletor. This was a Jekyll Hyde painting. Again, same kind of techniques, colored pencil and acrylic at work. The cobblestones have modeling paste on it to give it some form, because acrylic is a very thin paint, and it's kind of hard to paint thickly with it without it feeling too plasticky, at least for me. This was actually one that I just finished recently. Again, same techniques of colored pencil and acrylic. And yeah, so that's this method. And actually, this one had a gouache underpainting on it, coating paint for you, Namie. Uh, Yeah, the Jekyll Hyde one was quite a bit. This one was not nearly as much of a ride as, well, I guess it was a ride because it actually got damaged in transit to a convention, and I had to repaint some sections of it. But which was it almost killed me because I really liked this painting, and I was almost certain that at that convention it was going to sell. But the fact that it got damaged in transit to it meant that I couldn't sell it at the convention. So then I just had to send it back home, and then once I got it back home, I started to repaint the sections that were damaged from UPS. So let me mute again so I can put these back. Okay. So, yeah, actually, you know, I might, um, like a future stream, I might do some more normal order of operations for me in terms of working than what I'm doing here. This one was kind of an experiment, but that might be a little while. Just as a heads up, I have a Kickstarter coming soon for a sculpture I made, so I have to actually kind of work on some of the assets for that. Like I need to make the video for it still and everything. So I think the next couple streams might be more focused on that, just to kind of get it done and at least say like I'm working on it at least one time a week. Oh, thank you so much for the follow, Namie. But if you guys have any interest in Blender 3D, that is what I'll probably be doing most of the video work in. So uh, whenever I do that next week, I will be working on that. And I was originally streaming on Thursdays. I might switch that though to Saturday, just because it does mean I can work a little bit later than I would on a Thursday, and I don't feel like total crap afterwards. Yeah, though, Errol. So I want to. I also want to add on to the Jekyll Hyde thing. After that got damaged, I think I let it sit in the box it came back in for like a little over a year. I just did not have the heart to try and fix it yet once it came back. It was just it was too heartbreaking, man. Okay, yeah, that I think that works for the teeth. So I'm just basically lowering the value of these teeth so the highlights can pop a little bit more. I had gotten a little too bright, but what happened was before I did the face originally with the background still being kind of blue, and I think that was affecting my perception of the color. So now I'm kind of going back and reassessing it since I have this the white background keyed in now. Oh, is that a pretty frequent occurrence? I will admit I have pretty much no desire to do that kind of subject matter. Usually when I'm painting for myself, it tends to be kind of creepy art or like dark fantasy kind of things in general. I've started to be more okay with certain fan art things. This might be like the third thing of fan art that I've ever done in my life just for fun, like that no one was paying me for. I should do a now I'm thinking about it, I should do a Hellboy piece. It's a character I really like, and I just feel I don't. The few times I've painted in the past, I oh yes, yes please, yeah. So it's Hellboy's one of those characters where like I would love to paint him. I've always felt that. Yeah, you did help with that a lot, Errol, to get me out of my shell on that. Um, but yeah, like Hellboy is one of those characters that I would love to paint, but I've always been shy about it because uh, getting like I can never quite get him right. At least to my level of like what how I want him to look. Okay, let's see. All right, so I think now I can kind of go back in and actually hit some of those areas on the teeth a little bit more with that highlight color. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, I am very messy with my palettes. I probably should be a little more organized. I just oh man, yeah. So that's the other thing, Nathy, is like especially big paintings, and if especially if it's like a character you enjoy or whatever, it's hard to build up the confidence to tackle a piece like that. But you know, it is kind of like the one thing is like, hey, if you do it and you don't like it, you don't have to show anybody. Um, it could just be your own secret, and then if you do like it, then you can get to share it with everybody and say, hey, man, look how awesome I am. I did this thing. I definitely have a lot of I have a lot of the former. uh, Like, there's a lot of drawings that I don't share or anything like that. And I do think it's kind of important as it can sometimes mess with your mind to try and like post constantly for social media stuff and all that. Um, but I do think it is important to have like just drawings you don't show anyone ever, whether they're studies or like whatever reason. Just like, hey, they don't leave your sketchbook or they don't leave your house or whatever. I need a little bit brighter. Overall, like 3 weeks, I think. For tonight, we've been streaming since 9:30 Eastern at night, and it is now 1:10 a.m. in the morning. So a little over 3 hours now, at least tonight. But yeah, I only started streaming about 3 weeks ago. And I only figured out how to do to be able to have Twitch actually post the stream afterwards, like last week. And I'm trying to get like some of the I am striving to get some of the past streams that weren't uh, saved to Twitch, excuse me, up on my Patreon for my patrons as well. Yeah, so it's what's funny about that, Errol, is it's sorry for future streamers. I'll kind of iterate what he said. He basically said that he was at a drink and draw, and a friend of ours handed him his sketchbook to look at, and it came across as something that uh, my friend found brave to share with other people. And like, yeah, I get that. Weirdly enough, like in the setting of something like that, like like hanging out with friends or whatever, I have no problem sharing my sketchbook with people. But in terms of like social, because it's kind of like it's fleeting, you know. It's not like it's not like they're keeping a, they're gonna remember, or they're gonna like post it up later or something like that. Like they saw it, and it's kind of like a intimate sort of thing where it's like, hey, now you're in on the secret too. And yeah, so did, oh, and then your stream got lost to Instagram. So did Instagram just eat it, or like was it, did it mean to record it for like IGTV later and it just never did? You know what I think it also is his muzzle, like this area, it needs some of the that brighter color as well, just to kind of pop forward on some areas. Sorry, I'm like still trying to figure out the riddle of this his face. Oh, sorry. So I was listening to mashups and letting chaos. Oh, oh, I see. So, oh, that sucks. So it was a copyright strike that hit it. That's rough. That's you got to be like me, man. Um, just listen to abject silence. Or I saw that Lo-Fi Girl recently. That channel recently made all their music accessible for any streamer that is using it. Oh, and then so Nathy, I'm gonna level with you. I'm bad about pretty, like I'm gonna tell you right now, the majority of this palette is dried out. Um, I sometimes will hit it with a bottle of water, like a spray of water, like that. The problem with that is that it also ends up diluting down the paint and making it more watery. So I tend to roll with the idea that because I'm optically blending, um, it's okay if the colors don't quite match because it just adds more variety to the painting. As long as they're close enough, it works. Uh, I do sometimes I do sometimes try and mitigate that by adding a lot of paint to the palette so it takes longer to dry out. There are ways, however, that you can work around that. Let me just hit this little area and I can give you some tips. And I don't use them personally just because I, I'm fine with the way I work. It's not bothered me to have to remix and kind of rejudge the paint. I actually kind of take it as like a way for me to train um, and work up my color mixing skills. But if you are experiencing that, you can use what's called, you can actually use two different things. Let me move out of the camera real quick. You can use what's called a retarder, which actually slows the drying of the paint. And I think I actually have a bottle of it here, and I can show you what I have used in the past. It's good. It actually will help keep the paint open, wet for a long while. This is... Whoop. Actually, let me do it over here. This is... And let me switch the camera. This is one thing that you can use. So it's called a retarder. It's by Golden. Liquitex, I think, also has a version. And I think like any kind of acrylic manufacturer has their version of this. You just got to look around and see what they call it. But it's always usually they'll say it's additive for slowing the drying time of acrylic paints and mediums. The other thing that you can use, so this is actually a glass palette, and it's a glass palette that has like a gray piece of cardboard underneath it. And I use that mainly because once this is all dry, I can just scrape this up and then carry on like it's nothing to worry about. But if you are running into the issue of your acrylic paint drying out a lot and it becoming unworkable because you have very thin puddles of it, you can use what's called a Stay Wet palette, STAWET. It's basically a sponge, like a very thin sponge that has, it's damp. It's not like soaking wet with water. But it's a very damp sponge that has like a layer of like tracing paper kinda over it. Otherwise what's known as like baking paper or like parchment paper. It has something like that over it that you use to, that's your palette that you mix on top of. And what happens is because the water gets drawn up out of the sponge into the paint, and it has a seal on it too, a cover on it to put on it when you're not working it, it'll actually keep that paint wet for weeks, and you can use it for like weeks on end. Just have to spray like a little bit of not Lysol, something in it to kill the mold and keep it from developing. But yeah, that's two things that you could use if you're running into the issue of it drying out because your palette, because your paints are too thin on the surface. Actually, that is the wrong brush to use for this. Alright, is there anything else that stands out to anyone before I call this? Because I just realized it is 1:20 and I still need a shower before I go to bed, so I might have to just end it now. Yeah, it's late. Oh, sorry. I just realized there we go. I just started painting it. Well, thank you so much, Nathy. Thank you for stopping by and for the follow as well. I greatly appreciate it. I'll start giving my wrap-up spiel on this right now. I currently stream on... I'm probably going to switch over to Saturdays just to because it kind of works out a little bit better. But I do have some of the past streams are available on my Patreon, and they'll always be there once, even after Twitch gets rid of, because I think Twitch has like a 14-day limit right now on my videos, just because I'm new. But my Patreon supporters do have access to past streams through YouTube and everything. And then I also have like other work in progress stuff, and they get access to early videos, or sorry, early images and that kind of thing. I'm still trying to figure that out as well, to see like what everyone would like to see on there and have offered to them. So far, everyone kind of has been fine with what's been posting, so I've just kind of been doing that. However, if anyone ever had any suggestions for what they would like to see on my Patreon and they're a part of it, I'm always more than welcome to hear it. So, let's see. But regardless, thank you so much, everyone, for coming out to see this. It took a little bit longer than anticipated, but we did get it to a point where I think I can call it done, unless something else seems outstanding in the order. I will have to do I think the next painting stream I do, then I'll do a Hellboy piece. And let's sign this. And I'll need to scan this and get it up on the shop, but if you go to my site at asidesart.com, I will have this available for sale. I'll get it up within the next day or two, and if you follow me on Twitter, I'll make an announcement there when it's available. And otherwise, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out for this. Yeah, it really means a lot to see people enjoying it and everything. Especially since I'm kind of new to this, I'm still figuring things out as I go for it. But yeah, have a great night, everyone. Thank you again for coming out, and I will hopefully see all of you next time. So, bye-bye.